Virginia smoke. OVS, Old Virginia smoke. OVS, Old Virginia smoke. OVS, Old Virginia smoke. Old Virginia.
My name is Luke Darnell, Pitmaster of Old Virginia Smoke Barbecue, and I'm here to tell you about my new online class available at BBQChamps.com. This is a 100% tell-all competition barbecue class from yours truly, available online. It is a masterclass with 34 high-definition tell-all online competition barbecue videos that can be watched anytime, and they do not expire. They are packed full of pro tips, techniques, and recipes that will show you how to take your barbecue to the next level. These 34 barbecue cooking videos total 7 hours and will show you everything that you need to take your competition cooking to a level that you never thought was possible. We've already heard from several teams that have bought our classes and have already seen success and gotten their first calls. So this is something that brings me a lot of joy in sharing my knowledge and seeing people be successful with it. So are you ready to take your competition and backyard cooking to the next level? What are you waiting for? Just go ahead and go to BBQChamps.com and find Luke Darnell, Old Virginia Smoke. We hope you learn a lot and enjoy these videos and have as much fun cooking these recipes as we had making them. This podcast is brought to you by BBQData.com. BBQData.com is your one-stop shop for all of your barbecue competition data. If you're looking for historical data, calls, wins, and have the ability to track your progress in every meet, Barbecue Data has everything under one roof. It's a great way not only to track yourself in the standings, but also to track how you improve your scores from year to year. This week, I've actually taken a step further, and we're able to see what recipes were working in the past 3 years. Pretty cool when you have access to that kind of data. Listeners of this podcast can receive 20% off of a new subscription to BBQData.com with the code PITPOD, all capital letters PITPOD, one word. Use data to score better. Track your competition barbecue progress on BBQData.com. What's up, everybody? It's Luke Darnell, your host today for Pitmaster and Old Virginia Smoke podcast. And welcome to the 2026 season of the podcast. And we're going to start it off with a bang because unless you haven't been paying attention to competition barbecue, there's a big tidal wave rolling through our hobby right now. And that would be Barbecue United and the BBQ World Cup. And with us today, we have the co-founders. We have Shannon Pruitt and Scott Erdmann. How are you guys?
Doing
great.
Fantastic.
Hi, Luke.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Excellent. So normally this pitcast is focused on pitmasters and their habits, their routines, and the things that make them successful. And I would argue that people should go back and listen to every episode because you want to get ready for this and you want to get ready to try and win $1 million for the BBQ World Cup. So I think a good place to get started here would be, how did you guys come up with this idea for the BBQ World Cup?
Oh boy. Yeah, it's like where to start. So again, I think you touched on something that's important, right? Shannon and I are coming into this world, really within, an outside perspective, and, we can dive in maybe a little bit on our past, but, I was introduced into the competition world. I was helping a friend and, one thing leads to another, and, we're hosting a big competition in Texas at AT&T Stadium, and I'm running the entire thing, which was 100% not planned. So yeah, setting up the judging tent, hiring a sanctioning body, dealing with all the team registrations, getting people to not pay cash and pay with a credit card, right? Like all of the things that you deal with. And I'm sitting there and I was talking with, Phil Breeden with LC Barbecue and Bill Purvis with Chicken Fried Barbecue. And, and I'm just asking them questions and I'm bouncing around into, everybody's trailers and just introducing myself, asking if they need anything. And because it was chaos, right? Like all these trailers are coming in and, they're backing in and I'm like, one guy's like, I want to be next to my buddy. And I'm like, well, I don't know if there's space over there. And then, and next thing you know, we have trailers scattered all throughout the parking lot. And I'm like, this is nuts. And literally didn't have a clue of what I was doing. But anyway, I started talking to a bunch of, a bunch of the teams that are coming in. And I was just like, how often do you travel? What do you do? Like, why do you travel so much? And Phil's like, I travel 52 weeks of the year, cook all the time. And he ended up coming in first and Bill came in second, ironically. And, and that's after just talking with a bunch of people and just understanding the passion, the community, around this. And given, my background in, professional sports, I was flying back, to Vegas where I live and, just started putting everything down and, and then next thing you know, meet Shannon and, Shannon's like, I love what you're doing. And, she's got some interesting ties into, how this is going to be successful. And yeah, and I think that's how we kind of got here.
I think, you mentioned maybe diving into your past. I think that's an important thing a little bit in terms of the background, because as a barbecue pitmaster and someone who's done this for quite some time, we've seen a lot of people come and go in this space and saying they're going to do these things and create something. And this is by far, I think, one of the most exciting things. But I also think it's exciting from a standpoint of where you guys come from. So I think maybe we should touch on that a little bit on your guys' backgrounds.
Yeah. Well, I'll go first because I think, obviously I met Scott when he had sort of incubated this idea and, I fell in love with it because I think it sits sort of squarely at the heart of my experience, which with a stretch which is what I believe in anything, right? Like, what do you know how to do? And then how can you stretch into something else? But people always ask, so Shannon, what did you love barbecue? Like, are you a pitmaster? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, all of these people will be embarrassed by what I probably would make. However, what I do love is what barbecue stands for, right? And barbecue is built on community and coming together and storytelling and how that storytelling can spread through the community. And so really, my background started out working in sports. And before I was a teacher actually for 5 minutes in Japan, but then we'll talk about that later. And I work with middle schoolers, which made me fully equipped to work with executive producers across, the biggest entertainment shows on television. Because the truth is like content and storytelling is emotional, just like barbecue. So ultimately, I started working on World Cup, and then I moved into entertainment and worked on the very early days of American Idol. Before anyone really knew what it was, and we grew it as a franchise and into, I ran on the commercial side, all of our partnerships and, experiential, doing the deal at Walt Disney World and creating Idol Camp and like all of these things to bring the brand closer to the audiences that loved it. And then I sort of pivoted after that, after working for Mark Burnett and Fremantle, which is other entertainment production companies, into more of the media and buying and content creation side. So think working for Warner Brothers, working for starting my own agency that was part of a big company that owned a bunch of agencies, and then CMO of The Honest Company. And then the last 5 years spent at another big holding company, but really about how to work with brands, how to build products and solutions. And so I always believe that data coming together with storytelling was a very powerful tool, and especially when it has the galvanization of community. And so when I met Scott and he was telling me about barbecue, I was like, this is total blue ocean. Like, this is amazing. And it's so exciting to be able to think about how all that can come together, and then meeting all of you. And so, yeah, I didn't know anything about barbecue really, in its endemic core, last June, but gosh, like going on this ride and learning all of this and really starting to understand the opportunity is huge. I'm super excited about it. And I think that, partnering with Scott, who has the vision and the other, skills, and we're very complementary in many ways, I think it positions this for a really unique opportunity to elevate barbecue and create the next sort of sports entertainment, putting everyone on the global stage.
Yeah. And I think coming, again, just doubling down on that, not being endemic and, doing this every day and, coming at it with a little bit of a different, vantage point, is important. And it's one of the things I think, is important just in life, right? Is, sometimes your best advice comes from somebody who, is not in your world, because they're looking at it from a completely different angle. So, my background has been, commercial revenue for professional sports teams for, 20 years. So, the Florida Panthers, the hockey, I think we joked about this at one point. I felt like, at least at the time, I always had to say, the Florida Panthers, the hockey team, because nobody knew, at the time when when I was down there, who the Florida Panthers were. Now they've obviously have turned that around and, are dominant. But anyway, Florida Panthers, spent that was my first job out of college, spent 4 or 5 years there, then went to FAU, opened up their stadium, and worked on that project, and then went to the Cowboys, spent 10 years with, the Jones family and the Cowboys there, and, really learned a lot, of how they look at things, right? It's shout out on that Netflix documentary. If you haven't seen it, Jerry Jones is, an extremely polarizing owner. But when you watch it, right, he was the first one that, put all, I think he spent close to $200 million on this, and he put his life into making this a business. Right. And I say that because we're effectively doing that, right? Minus the 200 million. But, it's important because you learn a lot from people like that and organizations like that, where, they're trying to figure out a way to monetize something in a way that had never been done before. And that's what had happened. Right. So anyway, it's a great documentary. You really get to see, how much, impact, he had on the NFL. And then, for the last 5 years, I spent, opening up the Allegiant Stadium with the Raiders in Las Vegas. And then, so that's been my background. And it's really just, commercializing and generating revenue through sponsorship, media, social, all the fun things.
Yeah. And I'll say this just because, I've been working with you guys on this for a while now. And the stuff that the two of you are insanely impressive, and the stuff that I've learned in the short amount of time that we've been working together has been astounding. So it's really been great so far, and I can't wait to see where it goes.
The feeling's mutual.
Yes. Yes.
Because, when we're sitting in there trying to figure out like why you inject and how you pick a brisket and, all of that stuff, right? I think it's, it's a mutual respect because, you're obviously one of the best that does it from a competition standpoint, but then also understands, the business side of things and, where we're trying to, take this thing.
Absolutely. And I guess let's get into it, BBQ World Cup. Number one question that we're getting right now is where can people find information? And I believe that they can find it right there at bbqworldcup.com.
Correct.
It is true.
Yeah. It is not a phantom website. You can go there. At the time when we were designing this, we had a placeholder there. So, if you did go there before, prior to today, it probably looked a little bit different, but, we just had a placeholder in there. But yes, that's where you can go and find more information. And, really there's two things that I think are important that we're building is, BBQ United, which, I would say at some point it's probably going to shift to that. You can still go to BBQ World Cup. It'll redirect. So, it's still an important piece of what we're building. But, BBQ United is going to be the, I would say, overarching, right? Everything that we're trying to aggregate. And again, I think Shannon touched on it, community and, how important that is. And, United just, I think, represents that.
So it's, for the past 6 weeks, we've been slowly rolling out these qualifiers and how people can actually qualify for the BBQ World Cup. I believe most of that information is out now, but will all of that be available on bbqworldcup.com for people to go and find out?
Yes. It will be fully, it will give you everything that you need to know, right? We're, some of this with Scott and I joke all the time, like we're building the plane and flying it at the same time. And so, quick and fast, obviously news started to spread. We were like, oh my gosh, so trying to make sure that we're partnering properly as well with the qualifier, the qualifying event promoters, right? Like these are their own individual businesses. We honor that. We understand it. We appreciate it, right? Appreciate the opportunity to partner. So, but getting those things done, is sort of this fast and furious mode while all of these people are also planning their own events, right? So I think for us, right, as we, we're getting all of that list together and making sure we had the mechanics of how to participate, right? Like, what would that look like so that it can be inclusive? It can allow for, people who, haven't necessarily competed in, every pro Pitmaster division competition can start to get in the mix to participate. So all of that will be available. More to come. We're still going to be adding to the website, right? We just launched the website. It's soft launch. It's widely available now. You can go to it, but there will continue to be content information added, as this, what we're calling the road to the World Cup continues, right? The first ever BBQ World Cup, right? The road to the World Cup. We're on it right now, everybody. Hold on, put your seatbelts on, grab an oxygen mask, whatever you need to do, but we're doing it.
Yeah. And I think, another thing, just to maybe give some context there, because I know, to your point, Luke, we kind of slowly rolled some of these things out, but it was important, right, for, CBA World Championship that was happening, right? That was January 9th weekend, and then Slaborama, January 16th. And these events were coming up, and, we didn't have all of these agreements and everything outlined with all of the other events, and we needed to kind of start to sprinkle some of these things out so people could, we could help grow some of these events, right? Like Slaborama went from, 25, 30 teams up to 60, right? And that's been, I would say, the overall goal with this is how do we sprinkle this out? And again, more context, because we had a lot of people be like, why are we not having more contests in the Northeast or the Northwest or, over here in Canada or in Belgium or Croatia, and so, we're trying to figure a way out, next year where we can allow an opportunity for everybody's event to have a path to the World Cup. But we had to start somewhere, right? And we know it's not going to be perfect. And, it sucks that we're not going to be able to get everybody in this, in the ecosystem. But yeah, so we got, the CBA, Slaborama, Lakeland, San Antonio, Smoke on the Rio, Smoke on the Shores, Smoke in the Spring, Good American Barbecue or Grand American Barbecue World Championships, the North Dakota Barbecue Championship, Minnesota in May, Flying Pig, All-American Comeback, and DC Barbecue Battle. I think those are all the ones that have been announced up to this point. And honestly, the feedback has just been awesome with all of the groups, right? Even at San Antonio, which is an iconic event, and Erin Sanchez and their group down there does an incredible job. And, she stopped us and we talked to her for a while, and, she's like, the hype is real. And then we had a team from Monterey, come out of nowhere and win that thing. And like, it was just the excitement. And then the team like RGC, like they were screaming, we're going to Vegas. And it was just like, yeah, it's awesome. Right.
It's been a tsunami of excitement. It really has been. And I want to walk through the team experience here for a minute, but I wanted to ask really quickly, and I know that, and I think this was one of your best moves that you've done, is that you guys involved actual pit masters from around the country in helping to create this.
Yeah, I think, Shannon and I both agreed, that it's important, right? That, our committee and the folks that we've, brought on with, yourself and Darren and, Christy and Jeff and Brian and Janice and, all the whole crew. It's important just to get different perspectives on things and, just, help provide some advice. And, I know that we're balancing, Shannon and I's ideas of where we need to go and what we need to do, and working together with you guys. And, also, how do we meet in the middle on some of these things? Because again, we're trying to do a lot of these things that aren't just about, the competition side. But we feel that, foundationally, having you guys be a part of it is a very important piece, and obviously adds, more credibility to, what we're doing together.
All right. So walk me through. So I'm getting ready to cook a qualifier. Okay. And I'm a barbecue team. So I go to BBQWorldCup.com. What do I have to do there?
So there's a list of events, and it's important to know that we're just a partnership with these events, right? You still have to go and register for these events. And obviously, as we announce these, there's going to be limited space, because this effectively becomes one stop that you need to go to in order to qualify for $1 million. So, make sure you go and sign up with those events. But it's important that you go to BBQWorldCup.com, and you'll click
and make sure just it's BBQ, so that people. I know that you flashed it, Luke, but just to avoid confusion.
BBQWorldCup.com, everybody.
Yeah.
It's a great call out. People are going to be
marketer is like, wait.
Yeah, hit the brakes. BBQWorldCup.com. Click the BBQ World Cup at the top, scroll down, and then it'll say join, compete. Put your email in, join. And it's important to know that, we're trying to, really build this Barbecue United community. And as a part of that, joining the community is going to be important, because if you join before your competition, the fee for the World Cup is only $500. If you are not a member and you get in first or second at these events, then you would be considered a non-member. And then that fee is $1,250 or $1,250 to come compete at the World Cup. And then to sign up to be a member of the Barbecue World Cup is $50. And this will give the opportunity to be selected for, judging Barbecue World Cup events. Right. We're going to do giveaways. We have a lot of partnerships that are going to be lined up, where there's going to be a lot of giveaways to partners and a lot of fun things. We're creating discounts, with a lot of these partnerships, that'll be important. So, newsletters and, free tickets to the World Cup in Vegas and discounts on merch. So, so that's why we want to build the membership base. So go and sign up.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's not an invasive process. I literally did it while you were talking.
It takes 2 seconds.
It takes 2 seconds, and just the savings alone is worth it. But also the information that you're going to get in the future is going to be worth it as well, and the community that we're all trying to build here with BBQWorldCup.com and BBQUnited.com. I just don't think there's anything that exists like it. So, very easy to sign up. Make sure you get signed up. It'll help you stay in touch with us and keep involved with the information that's coming out. So, turning on a little bit of a dime here, you guys have now been to a couple of events. What's been the biggest things that have stood out to you in terms of competition barbecue?
I'll let Shannon go first.
Yeah, a lot of the competitions are nonprofit driven. And so I think that spirit of giving back to the community and the people that serve on these promoter committees and create these events and bring everyone together, these things are not, I've come from the world of event marketing. It is not easy to pull together an event of that magnitude with a lot of different folks and the amount of time and all the different vendors and partners. And, it takes a lot of time, and all these people are volunteers, right? They're doing this because they're on the boards and they're helping out, and, they have day jobs. And so I think that was also that to me, and having these conversations with the promoters is really incredible. And then I think the other piece is just how much everyone is willing to help one another. I laugh at Lakeland, Lakeland was special because we took the top, backyard team. And, even you, Luke, were like, listen, there's a couple of teams. I think they're great people. Like, I'm going to give them some tips. And, Darren and the team that won next to him were comparing tips on ribs and chicken. And like, Darren talks about it in the interview, which is like, Darren hadn't qualified and, gotten a call in ribs for, I think it was, or chicken. No, he hadn't gotten a call in chicken maybe, or ribs. And like the guy next to him was like, it was ribs. Yeah. He hadn't gotten a call in ribs in like a long time. And then he was talking to the backyard guy who's like an excellent at ribs. And like, basically Darren got the call for ribs. Right. So like, I just think this really unique spirit of helping each other and being able to use also technology to allow more people to help each other, I think is a really beautiful opportunity. So it's the spirit of it, right? It feels like a giant family. Everyone is exceptional. They all have a craft and a way of being and the way of doing and all the things, but still very willing to like help with drums and help with equipment, help with, advice and this and that. And I think, you just don't find that in a lot of places. So some competition means polarity, right? And this is really about community. And I think that it's a really wonderful spirit and exactly what you hope to see, but it's true. It exists in the world.
I have to tell you that, I've recorded probably close to 150 of these, and I always ask, what's the number one thing that's come out of barbecue for you? And it's always that sense of community and the people, and the fact that, that was your first competition was in Lakeland, right?
It was.
And the fact that you picked up on that at your first competition brings me great joy to be involved in this hobby, this sport that we do, because that's the number one guiding principle of it. It's a collection of people from all walks of life, all over the world. And it's the one thing that brings everyone together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the, interesting thing is, even at San Antonio, there was like 3 or 4 teams that I saw there that were at the event that I put on in Texas, 2 years ago, and they didn't recognize me, but I recognized them. Like, I forget the guy's name, but like, I know he's a diehard New York Giants fan, and he was wearing the Giants jersey at Cowboy Stadium and cooked an unbelievable dessert. And he travels around and, again, it's the community piece, but at the same time, it's also very daunting, right? Like, if you showed up and you were like, man, I'm super interested to get involved. I think that's the piece that I think we can help tremendous amount on, is just educating, right? Like, hey, go to the website, enter your zip code, right? First, here's how you start, take a couple classes, right? Because I think one of the things that we learned very quickly is, even at Lakeland is, you have the big, the fan over on one side, and then you got the competition side over here, and you don't really have people mixing in between that, even though, so how do you bridge that gap, right? In order to get somebody interested into the world that you're doing, right? It's kind of the big flywheel, right? More public exposed to what you guys are doing. Even in San Antonio, everybody was, blocked off. They had their big, areas, and they were caged off, and it wasn't really like public facing. So how do we bridge that gap to get somebody to walk through and they get to like walk up to Luke's trailer, obviously not during turn-in times, right? But how do they get to walk up maybe on that Friday when it's casual cooking and learn a little bit more and just talk, and this is what you do. This is this, right? So I think there's a big opportunity to really bridge that gap there. But obviously communities, vastly important, but then at the same time, competition is important too, right? I know Jeff and Darren usually, I think, do Lakeland together. And since we've launched this, they're like, hey, good luck, but not really. You know what I mean? Like, so, competition is at the heart of, everything that we do, right? In terms of like sports, right? Like, yeah, you can, cheer and help, and, racing's a very similar thing. People will help in the pits, and, if you need tools and things, but at the end of the day, you want to win, and it stings, especially like in a situation, I think, what's his name's team with Blues Hog. I think he was like, when I was looking back at the scores at
Tim.
Lakeland, he was like 0.1 or 2 away from second place.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy that, it gets down to that granular level. And then I'm sure you go back and you're like, man, you think about that. So I guess how much do you think about that? Maybe we're turning the interview back on you, Luke.
Yeah.
How much do you guys think about that stuff?
About how close it is?
Yeah. Following 0.1 point away from qualifying.
Sure. I have intimate experience with this recently at the American Royal. We reserve grand champion the American Royal. Huge honor. Best day of our barbecue lives. And then I had an 18-hour drive home to figure out where I could find 0.53 in my cook, which would have given us the victory. And, it helps that a really good friend, Wags Barbecue, won it. But it was still there, and just thinking about that 0.53. I mean, my ultimate goal is to win that contest. And I was one number away on a scorecard. And, Tim, it's funny. I texted Tim on that Sunday after Lakeland and I said, wow. I was like, pretty close. He goes, what are you talking about? I was like, you better go look. Because Tim's not a go look at the numbers kind of guy. And he was like, holy shit. I was like, yeah. And then and I'll tell you this story, and I don't know if you guys know this story. So Brian Corbett from Smokin' Scully's, he texted me Saturday night at Lakeland, and he was just like, why was Darren emotional after getting an RGC? And I was like, dude, he was happy. He was happy that he qualified for the BBQ World Cup. And I was like, I've been great friends with Darren for a long time and seen Darren win pretty much everything. And that level of emotion, I've only seen probably once or twice at a contest. So, that was a big goal of his, was to get qualified. And, just to get that feedback from somebody that wasn't even there, that saw it through a video, and I think it underscores the level of excitement that this has brought to barbecue. And
I think it's, it's important, that, you bring that up. And I think one of the things that, I think, we'll probably, call the elephant in the room out, right, is, we share the story and what we're trying to build so we can create these. And I think in order to get the emotional tie that Darren had, that, hopefully all these pitmasters have, is, obviously the question that you get a lot is, where's the money coming from? Right. And, we have investors, and, there's a lot more to come behind that. Shannon, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add on that, but I know that's a question, a common theme we get a lot, but I only say that because I feel like it's helpful context.
Sure.
Yeah. I as we talk about it when we walk around, right? Because, I come from an entertainment background in some ways. And entertainment, we always have a log line, right? It's, the Biggest Loser meets, Love Island. And you're like, what does that mean? But you kind of know what it means, right? And so we walk around and say, like, this is going to be the American Idol for barbecue. And I think, the beauty of, Darren's reaction is like, what you didn't know is that Darren, his chicken was rotten twice. He stabbed his finger the night before and cut it like very deeply. Like a lot of things go into all of these moments that everybody's spending out there in the freezing cold. Like Scott and I are getting baptism by fire, right? Like I'm like, oh my gosh, these people must just love what they're doing because it is not warm. The elements are like not like always so, favorable. Like Janice this weekend with her daughter Katie, they got 11th in ribs, and like those girls were out there. It was freezing cold on like rented, provided rec tech equipment, from in the International Village. And like the spirit of that was like so contagious. Like they were just in it to win it. And so I think there's just also all these stories that really transcend the competition that are right to tell and share, right? They're inspiring both in the backgrounds that everybody has, in the things that you go through, like in order to do this. And, the excitement around really finding, the best pitmaster in the world, but also all these other stories to tell. And I think like for, the way that when we talk about that, right, that's how we talk about it in terms of like what's to come, right? Like, what are we really building? We're building a huge storytelling platform and connection platform and opportunity platform, right? For people that, restaurants, catering trucks, food trucks, people that, go to the website, sign up your team, show us where you are on the map, sign up your restaurant, sign up your catering truck, sign up your, your catering business, your food truck. Because what we want to do is really connect all those pieces and parts that have lived disparately for a long time. But there's a huge desire to understand what those are and how they connect and how can I plan a road trip for my family, in Minnesota and find the best barbecue.
Yep.
Like that's a thing. So anyway, that's really, I think the stories that we want to tell, are incredible. And, if this is inspiration for people to go out there and like, give it a try or, level up in the competition or whatever, like Emma or Katie, Janice's daughter, cooked the ribs. She's 16 years old. It is highly probable that any, a backyard enthusiast could come into the pro and actually cook and win. Right.
Yeah,
and so that's the, coming together piece of it all, learning from each other. Like, it's just, I think there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity. And I think that's really where we're headed.
Yeah. And to your point, the stories behind each of these, right? I think that's where, this really started to crystallize for me. And after putting on that event in Texas and talking to Phil and traveling 52 weeks, and it's like, what do you spend? Like, this isn't, unless you're creating your own sauces and rubs and like, all the folks out there that do that, like that's a grind, right? Like
it's not sustainable,
it's hard,
right?
Yeah. It's hard to package. It's hard to market it. You got to do social, then you got to find buyers, and then you got to hire, distributors, and then you got to hire brokers. And then, you get in the stores and you celebrate, but then like the store's a month away from kicking you out. And it's like, what are you going to do to drive traffic there? Right. So how do we create this, this opportunity to change, have life-changing money, right? A part of something like this. And, it's again, World Series of Poker, like we saw what that did, for everybody to play poker, right? You could go buy in over here and a satellite and you could get good at poker. And next thing you know, you're competing on TV to win money. But, to Shannon's point, hopefully that triggers more. And again, I know that there's high school teams already competing, kids queues starting to grow, a little bit of traction, but hopefully this is again, the big flywheel of the impact. Hopefully that this can draw across all of it, and then just create life-changing money. And then there's a whole bunch of big shiny things that we have inside the shed that, we'll start to, share and, as this thing starts to unfold more, but we're trying to create life-changing opportunities. If you love barbecue, like there's going to be a way where you can get paid to do this full time. Right. So we got a lot more to come.
That was a great comparison to the World Series of Poker. How many people learned how to play Texas Hold'em because of that?
Oh,
I'm one of them.
Sure.
Me too. Yeah, I learned to play.
Yeah. I mean,
in high school, we would all go to a buddy's house and like $20 in a pot, and 10 guys would sit in the basement and, drink underage and, and then whoever, yeah.
I smell a card game at a qualifier soon.
I think that sounds like a really fun time. Let's do it.
I would love to say that, that I have, an advantage by living in Vegas, but you cannot live here. You cannot live here full time and gamble. I can assure you that.
So BBQ World Cup current timeline for the final is going to be spring of 2027.
Yeah, and we're narrowing that down. Like our target date is beginning of April, like that first or second week in April. We're working with the city, we're working with properties to try to lock that in. But yes, we're trying to get it locked in April of 2027.
Excellent, that's perfect. And I think right now the action item for everybody is to go to BBQWorldCup.com. Get yourself registered. It takes literally 30 seconds to do. And stay tuned for more info to come. Check where the qualifiers are. Get signed up for those. And thank you guys for bringing this to barbecue. This is excellent.
Yeah, listen, we've said this. We said this a couple of times, right? Like we both have left jobs in professional sports, and and at the end of the day, you're comfortable, and it's hard to leave something. When it's hard to wake up in the morning when the bed's warm and get out and get in cold weather, and I guess that's probably the analogy that I would use. But we're leaving long time sports and entertainment careers to hopefully help lift barbecue.
Yeah, I think it's funny. There's a Henry Ford quote that I love, which is like most people think that faith means believing, but more often it means trying something and giving it a chance to prove itself. And I think that's really what we're trying to do, right? We're trying something. We want to give it the chance to prove itself. We need the entire community to help us do that, right? To help us make this not a 1-time, but a 2-time and a 3-time and a 4-time. And every year someone's going to get the chance to win $1 million. But as we grow, so does the ecosystem, right? Then there's bigger tournaments and qualifying tournaments where there's bigger prize purses. And so, our opportunity becomes your opportunity, and your opportunity becomes our opportunity. So that's what we ask for too, right? Is not just, go register. Like this $50 to register to be a member of BBQ World Cup is not life-changing money, right? This is about like, how do we get people into the ecosystem? We can stay connected. We can share, the access that we get to offers and partners and products and, that kind of thing too, so that more people can get involved and more visibility. So anyway, I would just say that too, which is, that's really, we're trying to give. You all have a lot of expertise. If you're listening, you probably have all the expertise and you're deeply embedded and ingrained in this world. And you have lots of questions for us about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it. And the truth is like, we're going to do this the very best we can because we believe that we can do it, but also we're trying it and giving it a chance to prove itself. And we just need some help with that too.
Excellent, guys. Well, everybody, thank you, Scott and Shannon, for being here. BBQWorldCup.com, BBQWorldCup.com, BBQUnited.com. Make sure you
eventually
check it out.
Coming soon. BBQ United, not live yet, but
BBQWorldCup.com.
Yeah.
And this never gets old putting this up at the bottom of the screen. I'm not going to lie.
$1 million, baby. The road to $1 million.
It's changed me in terms of getting ready for this season and getting our meets in ready and research and practice. And, I had forgotten about Darren cutting himself Friday night.
Yeah.
And,
pretty bad. I was like, you need to go to the hospital. The mother in me was like, we need to do something here.
I think he soldered his cut. If I'm not
he soldered his own cut. That was insane. No. I was like, I can't watch.
I'm running around looking for Band-Aids going, the goat cut himself. Can't even use a knife. We need some Band-Aids.
Yeah, no, it's literally bleeding through everything. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really bad. But thank you guys again. I'm sure we'll have you on again soon with some updates. And everybody, check it out.
Thanks, Luke. All right, road to $1 million. Let's go, everybody.
Follow us on social too. Follow us on social.
Follow us on social.
All the socials. Just search for BBQ World Cup. You'll find it.
We're everywhere.
Lots of good stuff popping up there. So
repost, reshare, socialize, tell everyone you know.
Awesome. Thanks, Luke.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
Thank you for listening to Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast. Be sure to subscribe and like the podcast, rate the podcast, and to share it out with your friends. Also, be sure to check out the Old Virginia Smoke TikTok as well. Old Virginia Smoke, one word. That's all you have to search for. It's hilarious. Tune in next week for another great episode of Pitmaster. For companies interested in advertising, please contact Old Virginia Smoke directly via www.oldvirginiasmoke.com. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is edited by Chris Sedanka. Pitmaster, an Old Virginia Smoke podcast, is a property of Old Virginia Smoke, LLC.
Old Virginia Smoke.